Hello, this is Astronaut Steve Robinson, and I am here to answer your questions. Here's the first question. When air is released into space, what happens to it? Matt, that is an excellent question because it doesn't just disappear, does it? Air is a gas and it has mass, so it can't just go to nothing. So what really happens? Well, a gas is a collection of molecules that are packed together pretty closely. When it goes out into space, space is a vacuum and the gas expands and expands and expands. So it doesn't make more molecules, it takes the same number of molecules and they get further and further and further apart until they're one lonely molecule at a time. And in fact, then the oxygen and nitrogen molecules that we think of as air, they split apart and become atoms. So they become very lonely atoms all far apart in space. Second question, is it fun to be in space? It's very fun to be in space. For me, it was a dream come true, and it was such an exciting time to launch and then to feel um, microgravity conditions to be floating. Where did I go? I went around and around and around the Earth many, many times, and I went to the International Space Station. And that is the answer to my third question. I've been to the ISS twice, both as part of a construction crew. So I was fortunate enough to be uh, among the group of astronauts that actually built the space station. What's the hardest part about training to go into space? I think the hardest part is learning to speak Russian was my hardest part. Everything else was difficult but challenging and really fun. Learning to speak Russian was really hard until I finally started getting good at it. And then it was really exciting because it was a window into another culture and I totally enjoyed it. What was your job in space? Well, I had many, every astronaut has many jobs. So I operated the robot arm. I was a scientist. I managed many scientific experiments. I did spacewalks. I was what's called the flight engineer on the space shuttle. So I took care of all the different engineering systems on board. What does zero gravity feel like? It kind of feels like a dream. It's a little bit like floating underwater, except completely different because water impedes your motion. And with inside a spacecraft that is in microgravity conditions, you feel like you're floating with no gravity at all. Of course, there is gravity, right? Because you would be going in a straight line infinitely off into space if there were no gravity. You're going in a circle, but you're falling all the time, so you don't feel it. What is your favorite memory of being in space? I think one of my favorite memories was I was outside on a spacewalk and I was in just outside the space shuttle and I looked down at the earth and I recognized it was California and I realized I could see my hometown of Sacramento from outside on a spacewalk in space. That was a very favorite memory. Here's a good question. Has your opinion about Earth or climate change been altered since going into space? Well, here's something that every human that has ever been to space, I think, is surprised by. When you look kind of at the edge of the Earth, you can see how thick the atmosphere is. And let me tell you, it is not very thick at all. It's just a tiny little wrapping around the Earth. There's hardly any atmosphere. And it makes us realize we need to take care of that. It's really delicate. What did you miss most while you were in space? I missed being outside and just breathing outside air. When you're in a place where there is no air outside, it really makes you miss that. What advice do you have for someone interested in working for NASA? Be the best you can be. You're special. You know things. You have creative ideas and visions and dreams and capabilities that no one's ever had the mix that you have. And so this is what makes you special. And NASA is looking for people like that. Do you believe there is life in a form similar to ours on other planets? No, not similar to ours. I think we are I think we're unique in the universe. However, the universe is really, really big. And so I think it's statistically likely that there's some sort of life somewhere. But I also think because the universe is really, really big, that we will never know it. It takes so long to travel from one distant part of the universe to another that by the time any information based on light or radio waves could travel that far, um, probably both cultures would have died out by then. So it's tantalizing, isn't it? How do you communicate with Earth from space? Could you talk to your family or friends on Earth or just mission control? Well, that changed. When I started flying as an astronaut, you couldn't really talk to your family or friends except by special pre planned radio links. But now, with voice over internet and much better bandwidth from the International Space Station back to Earth, astronauts on the space station can definitely talk to their friends and their family on the phone. What happens when you get sick in space? Well, you don't get sick much in space because it's a very germ free environment, but you can get motion sick when you first get there. Your brain and your body feel very strange when you're floating, and it is pretty common that people get a type of motion sickness, kind of like if you're in the back seat of the car and somebody's driving around curvy roads and you can get a little sick to your stomach. That's pretty common, but it never lasts very long. And it goes away pretty quickly because your body, your brain mostly, adapts to this new environment of space very quickly within a couple of days. Well, that's it for the questions. Great job asking good questions. Can't wait to to do a follow up later on. And thank you for joining us for Ask an Astronaut. I'm Steve Robinson, NASA astronaut. Have a great time.